affordable groceries, affordable basic goods. And we need to protect our public services from privatization. But I don't want to use the word privatization. Let's be real. It's taking your tax dollars and giving them to for-profit clinics and companies and organizations. And that should not happen. And I will tell you, it's not, as Doug Ford likes to say, it's not just for hips, knees, and cataracts. Because my own daughter needed a medically necessary treatment to keep her and her baby safe just a couple of weeks ago. And her doctor said to her, well, you know, it may take a month to get this procedure or treatment done in the hospital. But if you are willing to pay $1,500, you can go to a clinic and you can have that done tomorrow. Shame is right. But I will tell you, her doctor called her back the next day and said, oh, I've got you into the hospital in 1 week. So we know that there is a manufactured crisis in our healthcare system. And the other thing we need to push for, we must push for to keep our social safety net and keep people safe, is for the big banks and corporations to pay their fair share. Because it should not be on the backs of the workers. It should be on the backs of the corporations and big banks. So, I would like you all to join the Enough is Enough campaign. And we want to push for these demands. We're doing mass actions all across Ontario on June the 3rd. Please join us, because if we don't get our demands, we will shut it down. We will shut it down. We will shut it down. If we don't get it, shut it down. If we don't get it, shut it down. If we don't get it, shut it down. Join us at WeSayEnough.ca.
Thank you, sister. Our next speaker is Rowan. She speaks today for the Palestinian Youth Movement, a transnational, independent, grassroots movement of young Palestinians in Palestine and in exile worldwide involved in their national liberation struggle. Welcome, sister.
Thank you so much for having us today. Hi everyone, my name is Rowan. I'm with the Palestinian Youth Movement. We just want to keep the energy up. We're going to start out with just some chants, so go for it. Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
The people united will never be defeated!
The people united will never be defeated!
I said the people united will never be defeated!
The people united will never be defeated!
Long live international solidarity!
Long live international solidarity!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
From the river to the sea!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
Palestine will be free!
From the river to the sea!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
Palestine will be free!
Woo, thank you so much. Thanks so much, folks. I really want to start off right now by emphasizing that Palestinian workers and peasants have consistently been at the forefront of our resistance movement, and they play an instrumental role in advancing the struggle for Palestinian national liberation. And we know that our people's resistance did not start in 1948, and we know that Palestinian workers and peasants have fought, and they continue to fight ongoing displacement, isolation, and dispossession for over 100 years. Shame!
Shame!
From the early Jaffa riots of 1921, where 10,000 Palestinians rioted against the British Mandate settlement policies, to the unions like the Jaffa Arab Labor Society that organized to protect jobs of Palestinian dock workers at the Jaffa port, workers and peasants have continued to resist ongoing displacement and ongoing dispossession. And this also catalyzed the Great Peasant Revolt of 1936 to 1939 that was against British colonial rule and increasing Zionist settlement projects. Workers and peasants are continuously being isolated and displaced from their lands in favor of Zionist settlers. Shame! Shame! And of course, in building this settler colony, Zionist occupiers sought to maintain a segmented labor market so that the Israeli economy could remain organized to benefit Jewish settlers to the maximum extent possible. Palestinian workers were excluded by design from participating in the formal economy or maintaining their own independent national economy. But Palestinian laborers continued to resist. After the first Intifada, laborers engaged in a boycott campaign that was predicated on economic resistance and self-sufficiency. Workers organized strike actions prohibiting Palestinian workers from working in Israel and prohibiting the purchasing of Israeli goods. And we know that Palestinian workers are not only fighting capitalist exploitation, but also racial capitalism and imperialism. And these violences necessitate that Palestinian workers and peasants will never be in solidarity with Zionist workers who are violent settlers on Palestinian land. Palestinian and Israeli workers do not and have never experienced the same repressions, and we know that any attempt to equate them is an act of normalization and cooperation with settler, colonial, and imperial violence. The role of our struggle against imperialism necessitates that we are struggling against all forms of violence that includes imperialist and capitalist exploitation. This includes the Palestinian elite, the Palestinian Authority, Zionist settlers that uphold Israel, and US imperialism that can maintain settler colonialism, military occupation, and repression against workers and peasants worldwide. The Palestinian struggle is a national liberation struggle, a struggle against imperial and capitalist forces, and we continue to uphold the ongoing resistance of workers and peasants who are resisting from Al-Naqab to Sheikh Jarrah, from Jaffa to Nablus, from Jerusalem to Haifa, and all over Palestine. On this May Day, we're not merely just standing in solidarity with our people, we are part of the resistance for a liberated Palestine from the river to the sea, and we know that Palestinian workers and peasants continue to put their lives on the line as martyrs for their land and people. And we are here today to emphasize that the Palestinian struggle will continue to live on, and the worker and peasant struggle of our people will never die. The workers' struggle remains central to our larger struggle for national liberation, and we recognize and celebrate the gains won by the international working class and all oppressed people worldwide who continue to struggle against the forces of capitalism, imperialism, racism, and exploitation. May the day soon arrive where the exploitative systems that hinder us are no more. Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
From the river to the sea!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
Palestine will be free!
From the river to the sea!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
Palestine will be free!
Thank you!
Thank you very much, sisters. Our next speaker was an organizer with the Ontario Coalition Against Poverty, OCAP, for 28 years. He is presently an active member of 230 Fight Back, which is struggling for social housing in Toronto, downtown east. Give a warm welcome to John Clark.
So thank you very much, comrades, and I wish everybody a happy May Day. This particular year, this particular May Day, I think we have some pretty exceptional examples of the destructive greed and irrationality of the capitalist system. And 230 Fight Back is confronting one example of just this irrational greed. Down at Dundas and Sherbourne, a very poor community that faces great adversity and faces a housing crisis. They are going to put up, or they intend to put up, a 47-story luxury condominium at a site where the community has been demanding social housing for many, many years. And I think that speaks to something quite remarkable. It speaks to the commodification of housing, it speaks to the abandonment of communities, and it speaks to the incredible need for resistance. On June 10th, we will be organising a march. We will be holding a rally in the community, and we will be marching on the developer who is responsible for this outrage, one Kingset Capital. And it just so happens that Kingset Capital is the majority owner of the Royal York Hotel. So that's where we'll be going that day, and I hope people will join us. I don't think they'll lay on anything for us, but except a police guard. But we nonetheless are going there, and we intend to fight this, and we intend to ensure that there is housing. And the struggle that's going on there is really a microcosm of what we're up against at this particular time. You know, they're telling us in the mainstream media now that we're in the middle of what they call a poly-crisis. And indeed, that's not an entirely invalid concept. The truth is that several strands of the destructive nature of this system are coming together in ways that are incredible. A climate crisis, an economic crisis, the shadow of war and global rivalry, all these things are producing enormous dislocation, enormous hardship. Here in Toronto, you see evidence of it. In Pakistan, we have seen the country devastated by floods. And at the same time as the country struggles to deal with this situation, it owes billions of dollars and will have to make billions of dollars in payments to bankers. This is an absolute obscenity, and it speaks to the nature of the system that we live under. But I think speakers who've said today that there is a mood to fight back, and we are seeing evidence of it, we're not just making that up. It wasn't just rhetoric, it wasn't just hyperbole. There is indeed a mood to fight back. You can feel it. I just went and checked the strike figures for Canada put out by the official body, and it shows that last year compared to the year before, those figures doubled. There's a mood amongst workers, and there's a mood amongst communities under attack to fight back. We saw it in the incredible defiance of education workers. We're seeing it now as PSAC undertakes the largest strike against a single employer in Canadian history. Nothing comparable since 1991. An absolutely incredible situation. In Britain, of course, a strike wave that goes back to the period before the defeats that Thatcher imposed. In France, an incredible movement involving millions of people taking to the streets. But at the same time, I think the thing we must bear in mind, and it's a very, very important consideration, is that the system's capacity and readiness to make concessions is so much less than it used to be. Those movements, as powerful and historic as they are being met with an incredible level of intransigence. And that means we have to think beyond putting on an impressive display. We have to think beyond the tactic of the day of action. We have to think beyond the limited strike. They have trapped us, particularly in this country, in a formula of controlled class struggle, whereby struggles are compartmentalized, limited, and isolated from each other. The goal we must have, and this is something to say at May Day if we want to challenge capitalism, is we have to generalize those struggles, we have to escalate those struggles, and we have to build a united working class movement that leaves no one behind. We cannot live in a society where people in impoverished indigenous reserves lack water supply. We cannot live in a society where people who need health care can't get it unless they can pay and move to the front of the queue. We cannot live in a society where people die on the streets when there are 65,000 units of condominium housing standing empty in the city, being held by parasitic speculators. We can't live in that kind of a society. We have to build a movement, and building that movement is going to require that we break out of the rituals of class compromise and start fighting back in the way that needs to be fought back. If we have as much class consciousness and readiness for class war as the central bankers, will be in really good shape. So let's build a movement and let's fight back. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Comrade John Clark. Our next speaker was meant to be the Najuan Support Network. I'm not sure if they've made it. If they have, please step forward. Okay. Since they're not here, I will just give you a brief introduction to the Najuan Support Network, because they're an important organization for this city. The Najuan Support Network is a group of international students and workers based primarily in Brampton, Ontario. The organization was formed to stop the exploitation and abuse that members face from employers, landlords, immigration consultants, and governments. So far, NSN's work has focused on stopping wage theft by directly confronting employers through direct action, recovering $300,000 in stolen wages. But that is not their only aim. They are organizing to end the exploitation and abuse of workers in all forms, including ending the sexual harassment faced by so many of our sisters in restaurants, grocery stores, factories, and elsewhere. Members of NSN are fighting for dignity, self-respect, and for mental health and physical well-being, for the greater collective power in shaping the conditions of our lives. As someone who's attended these NSN rallies, the labor movement in this province has much to learn from the leadership of the NSN. The NSN puts into militant practice the idea that an injury to one is an injury to all. They fight the bosses, the wage thieves in the courts, but also they rally their community and sympathizers to march on workplaces and on the boss's home. Such shows their strength are undoubtedly more impactful than any grievance ever filed. And being as they are not here, I now cede the floor to my dear comrade, Tynan Lieber. Tynan Lieber is a dear comrade of mine. He's a militant member of QP Local 2, Electrical Trades at the TTC. He is a founding member of the Labor MayDay Committee and speaks on behalf of the Communist Workers Circle, a study group centered on unionized blue-collar workers in the Toronto area. Tynan Lieber has an outsized impact on developing the forces of Marxism in Toronto, in Toronto's working class and its unions. Through his leadership in the Communist Workers Circle, he guides his fellow workers away from the convenient fictions of social democracy and toward genuine class consciousness.
Greetings and militant solidarity from the Communist Workers Circle to all of you here and to millions of people gathering in cities around the entire world to mark International Workers' Day 2023. Sorry, I'd like to be out with you in the rain, but apparently the sound equipment does not permit that. The first thing I want to say is victory to 155,000 members of the Public Service Alliance of Canada on strike across this country, and victory to QP Local 233 maintenance workers on strike just down the street at Toronto Metropolitan University. Their fight is our fight. Now it seems like whether we're getting in discussions on picket lines, you're talking to your coworkers on the job, or you're even just scrolling through memes on your phone, you get a lot of the same things. You hear things like, all I do is work and sleep, but I've got no money and I'm always tired. You hear, I work at a grocery store, but at the end of the week, I don't take home enough money to bring home food for myself to eat. Shame! Maybe you hear from transit workers, we moved Toronto, but we cannot afford to live here. Or if you know someone in healthcare, all my life, all I've wanted to do is care for people, but there's no one left to care for me and my loved ones, and there's enough to break me on the inside, but somehow I go on. Shame. Siblings and comrades, these are the cries of the victims of an absurd and irrational social system known as capitalism, where production is social, but appropriation merely private. Yet we're not just victims. The same capitalist social system that degrades and exploits us brings us together in the workplaces. It organizes us and imbues us with common interests and yearnings for freedom. It brings about its own demise. And that is why 175 years ago, two revolutionaries named Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels wrote that above all, the product of the capitalist class is its own gravedigger. That gravedigger is the proletariat, and there are billions of us around the world. We are the proletariat, and we will bring this system down. Now, the capitalist class of the United States and English-speaking Canada is not an ordinary capitalist class because it does not exploit labor merely within North America. Our ruling class exploits labor the world over, dispossessing and enslaving entire nations and laying waste to any that stand in its way. That is why our ruling class is not just capitalist, it is also imperialist. Yet it is not invincible. We're seeing more of that every day. They picked a fight with little Afghanistan and they lost. They've been starting proxy wars with Russia. In South Ossetia, they lost. In Syria, they lost. And in Donbass and what is now the rest of Western Russia, they are losing too. And if our imperialist ruling class dares to start a war on the island of Taiwan, then they will be met with defeat yet again. Not by a patriarchal capitalist state like Russia, but by our allies of the People's Republic of China. And mark my words, sisters and brothers, comrades and siblings, when they take on the People's Liberation Army, our victory will be unambiguous. As our ruling class suffers one military defeat after the next abroad, so comes nearer the day that they will suffer defeat at home at the hands of the labor movement and allied movements. We will go from strikes that lose to strikes that win, and from strikes that win to a working class political party that can seize power and bring down the sledgehammer of a workers' government on the property class, shattering once and for all institutions that enshrine the rule of big business, the landlords and the bankers. A workers' government will replace the police and the standing army with a workers' militia. It will lock out the employing class and install a centrally planned economy under workers' rule, whose sole proviso will be production to meet human need. It will aid in the liberation of oppressed nations around the world, from Palestine to Ireland to Tamil Eelam, Western Sahara, and Kashmir, as well as commit to national liberation here at home in the form of an independent Quebec and self-determination for Acadia, Indigenous peoples, and the Métis. A workers' government will socialize cooking, cleaning, and laundry and establish free 24/7 childcare to free women from the shackles of domestic slavery and overcome the patriarchal institution known as the family. And as the productive and educational level of society rises, the workday will get shorter and shorter to the point that all will have the time and the ability to participate in the administration of the economy, and the state and the government will be dissolved into society as a whole. Then we will not just have peace and the eradication of poverty. Then we will have total human freedom, complete liberation. The name for that, siblings and comrades, is communism. Today, a communist is a person who has no interests apart from those of the international working class as a whole. A communist is a philosopher, a soldier, and a servant of each and every one of you. I ask you not to take my word for that. Let us show you in practice. Happy May Day.
Okay, sisters and brothers, comrades and friends, this is the end of the rally part. Those who wish to march to Queen's Park can certainly do so. Soon we'll be marching. I think the marshals are getting things ready. And I want to say a special thank you to everybody, and a special thank you to ATU 113, QP 3902, 3903, and OPSU for all the work they've done to build this rally. We conclude that this rally in the spirit in which we began. International Workers' Day is an act of rebellion against capitalism. It is an act of defiance against all forms of exploitation and oppression. We say victory to the members of the Public Service Alliance of Canada who are on strike. strike. Down with capitalist austerity. Abolish NATO. Stand up for justice for indigenous people and the Palestinian nation. Down with Zionist apartheid. Down with racism, sexism, and homophobia everywhere. Our slogan remains, workers of the world and oppressed people unite. And if we're going to unite, it's for socialism. Thank you very much, comrades.
Thank you, Elizabeth.